Hello, 7Es and receiving students.
Hello,
Thank you. Take your seat. Receiving students and 7Es. In our previous lesson, what did we look at? Receiving students, I would like you to tell your teacher what we looked at in our previous lesson. Okay, 7Es, what did we look at in our previous lesson? Yes, let's have Isaac.
Finding simple percentage.
Very good. Students, in our previous lesson, we looked at finding simple percentage. Okay, receiving students, I hope you have given the same answer. Now, receiving students and 7Es, our today's lesson topic will be on comparing amounts. So this is going to be our lesson topic for today. Now, receiving students and 7Es, when we are talking about comparing amounts, like in our previous lesson, we looked at percentage. Comparing amounts, we will be still dealing with percentage in this lesson. When we are comparing amounts, students, we can use percentage to compare fraction or proportions. Okay, when proportion is a term which you will come across in our next lesson. So for this lesson, I will not further explain what proportion is, but we will use this term proportion in this lesson. So fraction and proportion can be compared when we are using percentage. And using percentage, what type of percentage? Equivalent percentage. If we use equivalent percentage, we can always compare fraction and percentage. Now, receiving students and 7Es, I have an example on the board, which I will explain as we go on so that we can understand how we can compare fraction and percentage. Students, here on the board I have an example. Okay. This example is all about number of students or number of students in a school and the number of boys each school has. Now we have two schools here. Students, what are the names of the two schools? And what is the other one? Korawake Primary School. These are the two schools. Now, Aurora Primary School has total of 350 students, both male and female, total students of the students in the school. Out of the 350 students, 210 are boys. Now, Korawake Primary School has 1,540 students in the school. Out of the total number of students, this 1,540 students, 847 are boys. Now, if we look at the proportion, what is the proportion of the boys? Okay, Aurora Primary School, 210 over 350. This is the total number of boys in the school. As you can see for Korawake Primary School, this is the total number of boys in the school. The total number of students in that particular school is 1,540 for Korawake Primary School. Likewise, Aurora Primary School. Now, the question here is, which of the school has the higher proportion of boys? Is it Aurora Primary School or Korawake Primary School? Okay. Raise your hands up, receiving students and 18. You think that it is Korawake Primary School? Good. Raise your hands up if you think that Aurora Primary School, the highest proportion of boys compared to is Aurora Primary School. Okay. Now, remember the proportion of boys in Aurora Primary School is 210 and Korawake Primary School is 847. The proportion is 210 over 350 for Aurora Primary and 847 over 1,540 for Korawake Primary School. Now, if we break down this proportion into fraction, Aurora Primary School will have 3/5. So which means that 3/5 of the boys, 3/5 of the students in Aurora Primary School are boys. For Korawake Primary School, 11/20 of the students in Korawake Primary School are boys. Now, these two things, proportion and fractions, cannot give us how we can compare which of the school has the highest proportion. So we need to use percentage so that we can come across to find, or we can find which school has the highest proportion of boys. Is it Aurora or Korawake? Now, 3/5. To find 3/5 of this, to find percentage of this amount of number of boys in this school, how do we find? How do we find the percentage of the boys in this school? What percentage of boys are in Aurora Primary School? How do we find percentage? We multiply 3/5 by 100 what? 100 percentage, okay, 100 percentage. Always mention 100 percentage. So, multiply 3/5 by 100%. We are trying to, now this time we are trying to find how many percentage of boys are in Aurora Primary School. Receiving students, can you calculate that? 3/5 times 100%. Okay, we have one student who have already got the answer. Sconti? Receiving students, I'd like you to give your answer to the teacher. Okay, let's have Sconti. Sconti?
60%.
Okay, Sconti says 60%. Let's see what I have. Okay, Sconti is correct. So 60% of boys are in Aurora Primary School. Now let's find how many percent of boys are in Korawake Primary School. Okay, let's have Florence.
55%.
55%, very good. Okay, 55%. Now our question is, which school has the highest proportion of boys? According to our answer here. Okay, Glenda?
Aurora Primary.
Okay, according to our result, Aurora Primary has the highest proportion of boys in the school. Then Korawake Primary School. Receiving students and 70s, what we have just done is we have compared proportion and fraction and percentage. We have used percentage to find the proportion of number of boys in Aurora Primary School and Korawake Primary School. We are trying to find out which school has the most boys, from these two schools, and that is comparing amounts. We can also use fraction to compare or find out which of the boys in the school has the most. Okay, so in order to give us the exact figure is using percentage. Percentage will give us clear fixed amount of which school has the most and which school has the least. So in this example here, we have just used percentage to compare. the two proportions. We can also use percentage to compare fractions. So receiving students and 7 is, what I have just done here is we were comparing percentage. We were using percentage to compare proportions and fractions. Now we will go into our exercise. Okay, students, our exercise is on the board. Can we all read the exercise? Read after 2. 1, 2. Okay, those are the names of two villages, Meru and Kawawa. Okay, the survey was on types of games, as you can see from the table there. There were surveys made on 4 types of game: touch rugby, volleyball, netball, and basketball. The figures which are under Meru are the number of population that like that particular game. Likewise under Kawawa. So from Meru there were a total of 240 people being interviewed, and they have their figures there. From Kawawa there were about 300 people who were interviewed, and they found out that 54 of them like touch rugby, 72 like volleyball, 51 like netball, and 123 like basketball. They like to play basketball. Likewise Meru, 36 like playing touch rugby, 60 like playing volleyball, and 48 like playing netball, and 96 like playing basketball. Now, our question is, okay, we have 2 questions there. Question A, we have 1 and 2. In which village was the volleyball volleyball preferred type of game? In other words, which of the village was that game most preferred? So we will go back again to the table. We will go back to the table and try to identify, compare those two. Okay, volleyball, from Meru we have 48, and Kawawa we have 51. From Meru we have 60, and Kawawa we have 72. Now let's compare using percentage to find out which village preferred that type of game the most. Now we will do that as our learning activity. The other one, A, 2, and B, we will do it as our exercise. Now I would like you to use that one as your learning activity, receiving students and 7 is. 60 out of 240 in Meru like playing volleyball, and 72 out of 300 like playing volleyball in Kawawa. You can simplify this to fraction, simplest fraction, and then change it to percentage. Okay? Receiving students, follow this example. Use this example to work out the answer for the learning activity. Use this idea from this example to find the preferred game. To find which village preferred the most game, or the game of volleyball. Is it Meru or Kawawa? That blue stick out. Okay, students. Okay, let's find the proportion of which village like volleyball the most, according to this information here. Now, what do we do here first? Let's simplify this. It is now in fraction. We can simplify this to the simplest fraction or simplest form. So this in simplest form is what? Simplest fraction. Alan?
1/4.
Very good. 1/4. Now, what will be the percentage? Okay, let's have Evelyn.
25%.
25%. Yes. Okay, let's go to this one. We have to find out the percentage of this before we can compare which school or which village prefers the volleyball most. So, simplify that. What is the simplest fraction? Okay, let's have Julie. Julie?
(18/75).
18/75. What is the common number that you use? Alan, you have an answer? Okay, Alan?
31/15.
31/15? 50 or 50? 31 over 150. Any more answer? Yes? Let's have our friend here.
6/23.
6/20. 6/25, huh? 6/25? 23. Last one. Clement?
Half.
Half. Okay. Let's simplify that. Okay, let's try with a simple number. 2. 2 into 72? 36, yes. 2 into 300? 150. What can go evenly into this? 3? Okay, 3 into 36? 12. 3 into 115? That's 50. Can we further simplify? Yes, by 2. 2 into 12? 6. And 2 into 25? 25. So here we do not have any correct answer here. So all these answers are wrong. So 72 over 302, the simplest fraction is 6/25. Now let's find the percentage of that. What is the percentage? 6/25 times 100%. What will be the percentage? Yes, Joshua.
16%. 16.
16, 1, 6.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Emmanuel.
24%.
24%. Okay. Who agrees with 24%? Okay, it is 24%. Now, according to this result, which village prefers volleyball the most? Is it Meru or Kawawa? Okay. The result tells us that Meru prefers volleyball the most because 25% of them likes playing volleyball, then Kawawa 24%. So receiving students and ATs, you have seen how we have gone through our steps when we are comparing fraction and proportion. We are using percentage to compare fraction and proportions. Now we will go into our activity. I would like you to do activity A, 2, activity A 2, and activity B, receiving students and 7Es, you can do it as your homework. So for the meantime, I would like you to do activity A 2 as your exercise. Receiving students, activity B, you do it as your homework. Now I would like you to copy the question quickly, and I will go back to the table for the information. Okay. Finish. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Hah? Hah? Oh, wala. Namara, just proceed mo. Ben, ako yung straight yun ako. Makatanya, gusto yung tawag sa kanila straight. Ang straight ta. Oh, shit. Receiving teacher, the answer to question A2, you can collect your students' book and then mark them. Now receiving students and 7's. In today's lesson, we looked at comparing amounts. Now, if you want to compare amounts, you can use percentage to compare amounts. For example, percentage can be used to compare fraction and proportion. In our next lesson, we will look more on proportions. So if you are not clear with proportion, our next lesson you will not understand what proportion is and how proportion can be applied in mathematics or in daily lives as well. With that, receiving students, our summary note for today's lesson: percentage can be used to compare proportions, or it can be also used to compare fractions as well. And our key phrase for today is on comparing. Our next lesson topic is on proportions. So like I've said, if you did not understand proportions clearly, our next lesson we will try to learn more about proportions. With that, receiving students and 7's, thank you very much for your participation, and I'll see you in our next lesson.
You are welcome.